So we had some good times with that bus. And what was your strategy? Did you have a particular strategy with that, or did you like being, you know, waiting for the bus to arrive with school, or did it really irk you, or how did you feel about it?
What, you really thought I loved standing in that beautiful, wonderful, crazy wind?
It really was, and it would really blow hard in the wintertime.
Yeah, it
Um,
would. Oh, and of course, our beautiful snow boots.
should we tell? Is that
As soon,
safe?
as soon as I got to the end of that driveway, I switched those suckers out. If I would have found a good hiding spot in that tree, in those trees, I would have. I am
Right.
telling. That would have been one of the first things I did, but I had to figure out a way to stuff that thing in my bag and make sure it wasn't all that noticeable taking it to school.
Right. So let's set some backstory here. What was the origin of the moon boots, and what was the story behind them?
What do you mean?
Well, for the listeners, so they know, I mean, how did we get moon boots, and what was the role they were supposed to play in our mother's mind?
Well, they were supposed to keep our feet warm because it was so bitter cold outside, and these were the best things we could possibly ever have, besides putting grocery bags on our feet before we put our foots into moon boots, um, to keep us warm as we walk down that almost half a mile driveway.
So I think that's worth noting. Before we had the moon boots, um, we had we had grocery bags that we would wear for footwear, and so moon boots were an improvement in one sense, but the moon boots had a downside and a dark side to them. Um, Number one, they were extremely unfashionable. Is that a polite way of saying it?
Oh, most extreme.
So all the other kids would look at us wearing these moon boots and laugh. And then what
Yes.
was the other unpleasant aspect of the moon boots?
Besides being big, bulky, and tease worthy,
Yes.
you're gonna have to refresh me on that because those are the things that stuck in my head.
Well, we lived on a farm, and so we often had to do farm chores. And those moon boots stank of manure.
Well,
And
we
so
also had permanent
not only were they
perfume
not
of
fashion statements, but we're sitting in class with these heavy moon boots that smelled like farm
ness.
farmness. And that's always a hit in high school.
Oh yeah, it really makes you very, very popular.
Yeah, so um I think I actually didn't mind as much. I'm not trying to say I was a huge fan of it, but I felt like it was better to be warm in the moon boots, and take a little ridicule than it was to go back to the grocery bags. But I think still, you um, had a really hard time with it, especially the teasing part. I think was the hardest part for you.
Yes, that definitely was up there in the uncomfort zone because was so fashion concerned or their lack thereof.
Yeah, and
And yeah, and the thing was is that um it wasn't that purposeful being a lack of fashion, and it was just that's what it occurred to be. And I was not a fashion guru in the first place, so that made things even more difficult. But
right.
we also had the perfume slash cologne of eau de wood. My ex-husband, whenever we started burning wood or we'd have a fire outside in the evening and stuff, he would always have to tell the story to the kids of how when he smells that, that was the it would remind him of when we were dating.
Right. So when you and I were growing up, we grew up in a home that um, didn't have um, central heating. We had a wood burning stove in the kitchen, um, and it that meant that um, you were really only sort of had a chance to be warm while you were in the kitchen, and everything got to smell like wood smoke.
Yep.
And on top of it, our bedrooms were far enough away that the wood burner had practically no effect, and we had no heat in our rooms. And I don't want to make it sound like it was unlivable because it wasn't. It was just fine. But on the other hand, I was a comfort loving young fellow, and it was cold, and your room was even closer than my room was. And um, that was not fair because your room used to be my room before I thought I would outsmart you and trade you your room for my room.
I was just about to point that out because I was like, if I remember, it was your room that became my room, but someone had found his way of sweet talking me into switching rooms and then found out that it was not a benefit because it got colder.
Yeah, and you wouldn't switch me back either, as I remember.
No, no, I would not.
So that was pretty special. But it was probably how long would you say that would be? Maybe from like sort of late October, November timeframe down to March?
Mhm. I would agree. The fun winters I would remember that so distinctively is that because we lived on a farm and we had natural gas, we of course then used that to heat our water. And if the gas was not at a good pressure, the hot water tank did not stay lit. So you would have to go out in the morning to light the hot water heater before you could take a shower to go to school. And my routine was I would get up, I'd set my alarm clock early, get up, go and light the hot water heater, feed my horsey, go back to bed for half an hour ish, and pray that there was enough water, gas pressure that it would stay warm while I slept and waited for the water to heat up, then get up and take a shower. Now, lo and behold, that sometimes when you got up to take your shower, the the gas pressure was not strong enough, so the hot water heater did not stay lit, so hot water did not happen in the middle of winter. And you learned how to do the as you washed your hair and or body as quickly as possible with the icicle water coming
So
at
you
you.
were a cold shower girl out of necessity.
It taught you how to be really awake really quick.
Now let me explain for our listeners because I'm sure some of them are going to say, "Wait a minute, if you had gas, why didn't you have a central air?" And sis, why didn't that happen?
Again, like I mentioned before, there was not enough gas pressure. There
Right.
was a
So
limited
we
amount
were
of
not
pressure.
connected to like a city service. This
Right.
was just a
We were
private
going off
gas
of the
well.
real natural stuff.
Right. It's truly natural gas. That farm had its own private gas well that was not it didn't have the pressure that would have supported a central air system.
Right. And it's not like, again, as Bro has mentioned, it wasn't like it was unlivable or intolerable. It's just those are the fun memories of growing up sometimes that, it makes you think back and enjoy the comforts of life now.